Hey, y'all. Tommy here at Storage Pug. Welcome to Gabfocus. Not only welcome to Gabfocus, welcome to the 50th episode of Gabfocus. Melissa, how's your day going?
It's fantastic. I'm just in awe of our number 50. I cannot believe that.
Unreal,
Very happy
man.
to be here with you,
Yeah.
friend.
It's
Yep.
it's been so much fun hosting this whole freaking thing with you last few
Uh,
years. And
the
yeah,
people we've
50.
got to meet. I mean, it's been
Yeah.
great.
Our
So,
brains have gotten bigger. I don't know if you can
yes,
see on screen, but the brains are bigger. But
absolutely.
to as a way to celebrate number 50, we brought on some really cool guests, and we have a really cool topic that I think a lot of people there's not a lot of like education on this, right? Like there are some, and the two people in our that we brought on like love to talk about this. But you know, when you think about self-storage and education, you hear about investing and you hear about marketing and all these kinds of things, but like no one talks about the maintenance, right? No
Right.
one talks about the things that keep the facility going. So I'm really stoked to get to have this conversation with the crew. So today's topic is about keeping up with your facility. Our loyal Gabfocus fans, welcome back. I'm glad that y'all are here. I love seeing all the familiar names. And if this is your first time, like Jeff in the audience, welcome to Gabfocus. Today's going to be a really special show. So let me first and foremost introduce our two amazing speakers. Jackie, welcome to
Hi guys.
Gabfocus. Your very first time. How you been?
I've been great, doing talking curb appeal and maintenance for the last 6 years.
This is your jam.
This
So
is my jam.
talk to us, give us the quick lowdown. How long you been in the storage biz? What is it that you actually do? And what's your specialty?
So Everbright has been in the storage biz for over 25 years. I have been in the storage biz for, what year is this? 6 years. And so I've been going to shows, meeting people, talking about their facilities, started speaking at conferences, doing roundtables about maintenance and curb appeal. And, while you said it's all about, you usually learn about marketing and income and assets and whatnot, keeping up your facility really is all of those things. It is marketing. It is part of your asset preservation. It's all of it. So it really ties in. And so that's what I do. I tell people about how to keep stuff looking great, whether it be storage or anything else.
Amazing. Well, I can't wait for you to drop some knowledge on us. And your fellow speaker today, he is no stranger to Gabfocus. Nigel, welcome back to the stage, man. How have you been, sir?
I'm good, mate. Thank you. Congratulations to you and Melissa both on the 50th. Thanks for having me back. We're in good shape over here. So excited to be here and chat through some maintenance stuff. A little bit out of my wheelhouse, but hopefully I'll get a little input. We'll let Jackie take the lead.
There we go. Well, so catch us, give us the 30-second catch up on like demand. Like what is the new construction looking like? Like how's it been this year?
New construction is still full on. I think there's still gaps in the market and people are still making good decisions. Obviously, the interest rates are hurting some people and making things a little more difficult to pencil. Lenders are asking for a little more money up front now to make sure that they have enough liquidity in the deal as well. But I would say generally overall the feeling is upbeat and people are soldiering on and moving forward. Demand has not stopped. And so the big markets, California, Texas, Florida, are still raging. And the secondary markets people are finding their place to put new units and new facilities as well. So we're really busy and we're really blessed and grateful and hopefully it continues.
Amazing. So the outlook is good for self-storage is what I just heard.
Yeah, I would think so. It's getting more, some deals are getting more difficult, but we're not seeing a whole lot of stuff go away. So that's really exciting and people are really putting the effort in and want to stay in the market or get in the market.
Incredible. Well, Jackie, Nigel, we're excited to have y'all on. If this is your first time to Gabfocus, welcome from the bottom of my heart. It's brought to you by our lovely teams at Storage Pug here in Knoxville, Tennessee, and Lighthouse Storage Solutions, which I guess, Melissa, congratulations and welcome to the Lighthouse crew.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
That's all very exciting. So
Yes,
the
it is.
session is set up like this. We're going to go for about an hour. It's a live Q&A. Melissa and I will ask Jackie and Nigel all the questions, but it's not just our questions. You can submit questions too. There's a Q&A tool somewhere down below. Click the Q&A and put it in there. You can have a great conversation in the chat channel, but Melissa and I may not see your question. If you ask it in the comments, ask it in the Q&A, and we'll make sure we'll totally get to it. Something fun about today's episode, since it is the 50th episode, at the end of the session, we're going to draw some winners for some Amazon gift cards. And so anyone who's live in the audience who is still here towards the end of the episode, we're going to do a live drawing with your name, and you'll get a chance to win. Tyler will have to correct me at maybe 3 $100 gift cards. Amazon cards. Yes, cool. Thank you, Tyler. Tommy number 2. But yeah, so stick around towards the end there. But today's agenda, very cool. When we talk about like keeping up with your facility and maintenance, we're talking doors and locks, walls, siding, roofs, signage, all of those things. Of course, we're going to do live Q&A as well. And then we'll wrap up with question of the week. So, intros out of the way. Jackie, are you ready to answer some questions? Nigel, are you ready to answer some questions?
Let's do this.
Let's do it. Melissa, let's get it started.
Awesome. All right. So we're going to start with, I think, probably everybody's most obvious when they're thinking about keeping up with their facility. I've even seen conversations about it this week on Facebook. We're going to talk about doors and locks. So, are there different types of storage doors? And what are the pros and cons of each? Who wants to take that one first?
I'd say there's a million types of storage doors, but anything new coming out, because you see some old ones and you see all different kinds. You see what people use garage doors and everything else. But the new ones, I think, are all pretty similar. There have been some companies in the past that have, I think, recently closed that didn't have kind of up to par. I think we all know Janice has bought pretty much everybody. So I think they're all pretty similar at this point. But yeah, I think that's it. Unless Nigel, you know any different.
Yeah, no, I think as far as a roll-up door goes, for sure, there's one big dog on the porch. Has been a lot of new companies into the market to give some other options as well now, which I think is a good thing, just wholly for the industry, just purely from a competitive price point. That's important, and people are taking the risk into that market now. Now the end game for those people might be the same as everybody else who's entered the market, but it might not be for others. That might be a legitimate runway for additional revenue. For a storage owner and operator, the functionality of the door obviously is important. Maintaining the functionality of the door, looking after the door, making sure you can maintain your warranty on that is really important, because you're not going to get any support from a door provider if you haven't been upkeeping and maintaining the door. And then on locks, there's 1,000 latches that are available. There's 3 or 4 on the market that most people reside into. And they either take a padlock or a bezel or which is a brand name, or a cylinder lock, I think is probably more widely known. And then obviously now we're ending into Bluetooth latches and networking and all that sort of stuff as well. So it's a huge market, I think, is opening up, but it also brings its own issues as far as how do you maintain those systems and who does that for you.
So you mentioned roll-up doors, and I see in the comments here, roll-up doors are better than swing doors. Is there a use case for swing doors anymore? Is there, or has basically everyone moved, all the new construction basically doing roll-up doors?
Yeah, no, there's a place for swing doors. Primarily, you see swing doors now where there's a neater space, a janitorial space, or a air conditioning space, or MEP area. But outside of that, if you're in a facility in an urban area, typically where you see lockers, so you see not your traditional 10 by 10 unit with a roll-up door. In urban areas where land use is tight, they'll put in lockers that are stackable, and so all those have swing doors on them as well. So there is a place for swing doors. and Jackie will know better than me on this, but a lot of old facilities used to use swing doors or what you'd call a walk-through door or a pre-hung door, but they're very difficult to keep maintained, and they swing open in the wind and all those sort of things as well. But there is a place for swing doors, but not typically as a security measure for units anymore.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, Jackie, let me ask you about this. So Nigel brought up the idea of maintenance on the doors specifically for just to maintain your warranty, right? So like,
Yeah.
what are those maintenance items to keep your doors in a place where, you know, to keep your warranty valid?
For the most part, you need to keep your doors clean. That's both the exterior, because keeping a clean door will save your paint and will extend the life of your paint if you keep it clean. And then making sure that your mechanisms that actually roll up are well greased, that, you know, you're checking them in between people moving in and out. A lot of times we see, when we go out to facilities, it's very common to see felt marks down the doors, you know, in stripes. And that's because the felt that's rolling up with the door to keep it protected is sagging. So getting that fixed so that you don't A, damage your paint, but B, that means your doors, your mechanisms are not good. Getting a professional out there to tighten up your doors when they're needed. You know, if they're hard to open, you have an issue. That is, you have a liability issue, and you're degrading your door because you're just not taking care of it. So you really, those are the things, keeping them clean and keeping them rolling up and down smoothly, and actually checking those between closeouts of each unit.
Well, there we go. Keep those doors clean.
That's it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, clean and intention is the key, I think, to functioning correctly.
Yeah.
So that requires cleaning on the inside and on the outside. So between
And getting those spider webs out of there, you know, getting
Yeah,
the spider
when
webs
the
out
tenant-
too.
you know, when the tenant moves out and you actually go in to clean the unit, close the door and clean down the back of it.
Yeah.
That makes a big difference too.
Right.
So, okay. So let's talk locks then. We talked a little bit about, you mentioned the different latches, Nigel, but what about locking mechanisms? Let's dig into that a little more, because we also have someone mentioned in the chat, you know, we've got the Noki system. So we've got all of these different technologies that are coming out. So anything you guys want to say about that side?
Nigel, I think you probably have more experience. I know, like you were mentioning, Melissa, on the Facebook groups, I see complaints about one or another and batteries dying and things like that. So I think that's really great technology. I think it's kind of checking with people to see what's working for them, though. I think that's where those Facebook groups really come in handy, to see, you know, how people are actually liking this new technology. But Nigel, I think that you probably have more experience with getting people set up with different units and what the cost benefit analysis is with those newer.
Yeah, I think on our side of the business, it's really operators' discretion, right? But seeing the Bluetooth activated latches, you know, Noki or Onity or some of these other guys that are entering the market, I think they have their place. I think because our industry is well known and relatively slow to move and make changes, the new technology is being treated with some trepidation, I think. You know, if you have a padlock on there, or if you have a cylinder lock or whatever, there's some functionality behind there, and you could solve the problem if a client has an issue in getting into a unit. You know, and I think with the technology side of it, there's probably some apprehension, some hesitation to move completely into that, although the benefit is obviously you're not touching the unit near as much as you would typically. You can control you know, the payments, you control access and all that sort of stuff into the unit through the technology. But, you know, I would say as a whole, our industry is relatively cautious about taking on new stuff. And I would say the Bluetooth side of that is a big part of that equation, as well as obviously kiosks and that sort of stuff now. But I don't know the maintenance of that. I know that the big issue is the battery life, and there is ways to monitor battery life in new systems. I don't know each individual product specifically, but I have some insight into a few of them, and some do and some don't. And so how do you deal with that if there's a battery rundown in a latch, and you go from there. So it's about monitoring it and managing it. The maintenance of those lights, I think there is longevity in the batteries, but there is also networking and clouds and routers and software and all those things that need to be taken into consideration as well.
No, those are good. Oh, go ahead, Melissa. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I was going to say you made a really good point about it's kind of owner's discretion, because every operator, if great technology might not fit with the business model that you have or the needs that you have. It may be too much, or just, a Da Vinci lock may not be quite enough. So it really does depend on the operation that you have, at your facility.
Yeah, it's the ongoing cost management of that too, versus if you have someone on site or you're managing your own facility, right? So, obviously there's a fee to use the technology, and so you have to be able to build that in. And Tommy, I'm sure we can integrate a bit more into that, but the cost is really the fee structure versus and the initial putting in of the technology, and then how do you maintain that versus if you have multiple facilities and you have a maintenance person, they're able to manage just traditional locks and latches for you.
Right. No, and I think you make a good point about all those different attributes, and I think it comes down to differentiation, right? Like, do I want to be the facility that's got all the gadgets and gizmos? Do my customers actually want all the gadgets and gizmos? The answer could be no, right? Like I talked to Jane Sauls this morning. She's been a repeat guest here on Gabfocus, and in addition to being a rock star broker, she also owns a couple facilities, and one of her facilities has Nokia access control and Nokia locks. And we made it. She said that not once has she seen a customer use their phone to get access to the facility. As soon as they drive up, they just punch their keypad because they see the keypad, so they're going to just put in their gate code. But now, as soon as they walk up to their unit, they pull out their phone to open their door, right? But then she said, now that I think about it, she had also never used her phone to access the facility, right? And so there's just like, you just have to ask yourself, like, how much differentiation and is your market and is your clientele going to use all these gadgets and gizmos? So Tim, I think to answer your question about, I think a lot of people have used these electronic locks, and then it's whether it's good or bad. I think the technology has progressed a long ways in the short 3 or 4 years since Nokia's been introduced, right? I mean, it's come a long ways, and there's a couple new companies that have rolled out. I think this most recent spring conference circuit, we saw 4 or 5 different new locks introduced to the marketplace, right? So I think it's still new, and I think there's still going to be a lot more optimization to be done. So Tim, that's a really good question.
So as a former client of Jane's and renting units from Jane, in the facility where she has no key, and technology user myself, it's actually habitual to go to the keypad.
Yes.
And put your number in, and then turn your Bluetooth on to go open your latch. So it's a matter of evolution and understanding. And then, everyone talks about how tied you are to technology now. Do you become even more tied? Do people really want that? I think someone made a comment, do they want the personalized experience of being able to walk in, say hello to someone, know that someone's there watching their stuff? I think there's probably a differentiator between locations and urban and non-urban and that technology. So there's a lot of stuff that can be worked through there.
And Jane has multiple facilities, and she uses different lock systems for each one. Right. Yeah. Because again, she knows her clientele and her client base. While we're on this topic of lock, there's already a James Franz has a really good question that's been thumbs up 5 times.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Let's go and ask it here. I know, right? All right. So is there knowledge or existence of any jigs to assist staff with drilling cylinder locks? Any helpful advice here? And
it's all about the drill bit.
Yeah. The answer to that is I don't know that there is a jig to drill the holes other than putting the latch on first and then working your way through that. Our field guys that do some sort of that, do that type of conversion, or whether there's been a mispunch and we have to go in and field install those holes. Those guys are the pros, and they just seem to be able to work out where it needs to go. So I do not have a good answer for that, but it sounds like a business opportunity for someone to build jigs to.
I have an answer for this actually then,
like
Nigel, if
Megan's
you
answer.
don't have one, because so
Let's
the
hear it.
facilities that I used to, well, the facilities I used to operate had either, the disc locks that had to be sawed off, or you had the cylinder locks. I would not touch the saw for anything because I was likely to lose a limb. It's just not a good thing, but a drill I can do. It's all about the drill bit. You've got to find that sweet spot of not being too big in diameter, because then you're just cutting through way too much metal, but it's got to be big enough to actually pop off the back of the lock. So I recommend the Cobalt. It's strong enough to actually go through the lock without just melting everything. So those are my pointers that I would give. I do see that someone put in the chat all about these drill bits. Someone talked about keeping a duplicate key, which I don't recommend doing, just because that is more liability on you. You're running the risk of being accused of having entered that unit. So we don't actually, just as an industry standard, we don't encourage that you keep a copy of the tenant's keys at all. Just give them the keys and learn how to drill it out. So that's my 2 cents.
Well, there you go. So check out those Cobalt, and this is this is professional advice only.
It works, I promise.
Disclaimer.
If I can do it, anyone can, I promise.
There we go. So let's move. So I think this has been a cool discussion on doors and locks. So let's move to other parts of the building. Right now, let's talk about the walls and the siding and the roofs. So when it comes to those things, what are all the different options, or the most popular options, when it comes to walls, siding, and roofs?
Nigel, that's your question, buddy.
So again, talking through the warranty. So if you're a new facility owner, or you've just built a facility, or you have bought a facility that's still under warranty, on walls and roofs and paint on especially metals, there's a 25-year warranty. So if you should be getting the warranty documents either at the time of completion of your facility, or if you buy a facility, and you need to be maintaining the materials to that standard in order to maintain the warranty. But the big things, especially on the roof side of it, because we get a gazillion calls about roofs. My roof is leaking, or the water's flowing over the gutters, or there's water in a unit, we need some help. What do we do? Primarily, the maintenance on the roof is cleaning the gutters out and removing all obstructions from the roof. So your landscape contractor will typically pick up some that work for you, so you don't have to put anyone on the roof yourself. But very simply, just cleaning the gutters and maintaining everything off the roof will keep the integrity of the roof. On the walls and that sort of stuff, like Jackie said, you have to keep them clean. You have to keep them contaminant free. So if you have a renter who comes in and he drops a 5-gallon bucket of diesel in his unit, and it's up against your walls, or he's put oil up against your walls and stored it, you need to call your maintenance guy or your contractor or whoever was the facility builder and get them to come in and change that out and replace that stuff out. So really just the same sort of common sense maintenance you do on your home for your siding and your roof and your gutters is really what translates into your facility.
Yep. Very good.
Yeah. Oh, Mike, well, we're going to step back briefly. Mike had a question, back to doors, if you will, and we will. When is it best to use like an Everbright product versus just getting a new door? What are the circumstances? So, Jackie, that might be a question for you.
Yeah, actually, if I can share my screen, I've got a good framework.
Oh, yeah, you should be able to. Yeah.
Oh, well, now I gotta find it. Nope, there it is. Share that one. Can y'all see me there?
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, so this is kind of what I share with people. So when you need to replace your doors, like I said, if your mechanics are going bad, or your doors are not easy to lift and close, and you have tried to adjust them, you've had somebody out and they don't do it, then you have a major liability. Somebody's going to get hurt and they are going to sue you. So that would be when you would want to replace your doors. And then sometimes if you're adding some of the enhancement, it just makes sense. You don't want to put a no-key lock on a 40-year-old door. So that would definitely be a replacement issue. Or if you have, it's not listed here, if you have doors that are so damaged, obviously, they're crumpled in, you can't fix them, you can't pop them out, then you need to replace it. Or, we've seen in Hawaii, Corpus Christi, doors that are literally rusted through. You can just stick your finger through the rust. That would be when you want to replace your door.
Yeah.
And then as for painting, so then you kind of go, okay, well, they're fine. If you're going to be rebranding, changing your colors, changing your logos, if you buy something and you've got 5 facilities that all have the same brand and you want the same color doors on the same for all of your facilities, then definitely time to paint your doors. If your paint has existing issues like cracking, chipping, peeling, anything where that paint is literally not adhered to the door anymore, not intact, then you have to repaint the doors. So that would be that. And then pretty much everything else is Everbright. So you want to have anything that's just faded, oxidized, dirty. The Everbright system is really cleaning the doors, getting the chalk and oxidation off the doors, and then applying the Everbright, which will then restore the original color and luster of the doors. So if you are happy with the color and they're just faded and dingy, and I mean, they could be 40 years old doors that can look new again just with Everbright if they're just faded and oxidized. If you're purchasing a new facility and you don't care about rebranding, you don't care about the color of the doors, it's a really easy way to bring your curb appeal up, make your doors, and it's not just your doors, it's your doors, your metal buildings, your gates, your signs, anything metal or hard plastic can be refreshed with Everbright. So really making your facility look really good. Max can totally speak to this. Did Everbright makes his 17-year-old facility look much younger than it is. For people who are getting ready to sell, if you're trying to sell, or if you're thinking about selling, you want to do the same thing, make that facility look really great, increase your rents, which increases your NOI, which increases your cap rate, or not your cap rate, but it increases your NOI, which will increase your value when you go to sell in 6 months to a year. That's what I recommend, doing it 6 months to a year before you're ready to sell.
There you go.
If you're adding new buildings, so 20-year-old Janus blue doors and brand new Janus blue doors are exactly the same color. They have not changed their paint schemes. And so if you're adding on to your existing buildings or your existing structure and you're adding new buildings and new doors, you can Everbright the old doors and they will match your new doors. So I think that's kind of like
That's amazing.
really
I love that.
Yeah, and I'm reading the comments here. Yeah, Tom had good experience. I mean, yeah, so this is good. And Stephanie says, Saul thought that we had new doors on a 27-year-old facility. So yeah, cool.
That's incredible. Especially like you said, if you've got that new addition and it looks so just gorgeous and shiny, and it really suddenly makes what did look like a decent facility beforehand, it can really make it look old and dated. So that's a great solution. I love that.
A lot of people don't realize how bad their doors are until somebody backs into a door and they put a new door on, and then they go, oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you can have all of your doors match. I mean, if you're buying just a door replacement door that's the same as your other doors, you can make your facility actually match and look all new.
Yeah.
So I think we get a lot, oh, my doors aren't that bad. And it's like, are you sure? Because I think they might be.
There you go. Hey, I'd like to shift gears back to roofs a little bit, because there's some Q&A here that
there is.
Yeah. So because Nigel, you mentioned Jackie, by the way, thanks for having the breakdown. That made
that's what I share with people all the time. Yeah.
But Nigel, you mentioned like some of the calls you get most often is like my roof is leaking, right? And so a couple questions related to that. So Max actually asked, how do you handle failing insulation within a unit caused by such leaks? What's the any tips and advice there?
Yeah, so it is difficult to replace insulation when it's been desecrated by weather. You know, typically what you see if you're talking about a metal roof is the insulation actually welds to the bottom of the roof panel over time during heat cycles. And so being able to replace that, you can get liners that go in below the framing of the roof where you could supplement the insulation in there. But depending on how bad the degradation is of of your insulation, you might be looking at a replacement more so than trying to patch it in.
There you go.
Hey.
Hopefully that's helpful.
There was another door question too, just to back up one more time, to go back to the felt runners that are on the inside of
that's
the
a great.
doors.
Yes.
Yeah, those actually do serve a purpose. For one, to keep the door from scratching itself, but also it does make it smoother and quieter, like James pointed out. The question is, how do you replace those? Like, where do you get the felt? Is that an easy thing to do on your own?
Yeah, I think you could replace it. I think you would have to contact the manufacturer to see if they would supply it to you.
So it's something you would want to get from the door manufacturer.
Yeah. So I know that there's multiple types of felt out there. The felt that they use is pliable and flexible and has a certain amount of adhesion to it, so that it actually stays in place and does its job theoretically. So if it is coming off, you really need to replace like with like, so that the door does run, it doesn't scratch. And then there's a noise component. It dampens the noise a little bit as well. So the manufacturer of your door would probably be able to help you with that and see if they would supply it to you.
Yeah, and James mentioned Chateau probably sells some felt as well. So,
yeah, they may do. I'm not.
Yeah,
I
love.
They have a lot of stuff in their catalog. So
yeah, but I love the advice of checking with your door manufacturer, right? And I think that probably goes back to maintaining the warranty on the doors as well.
Yeah, maybe so. Like if it's not there and it's not functioning correctly and it's taking the paint off, then you lose your paint warranty and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, we've seen it down to bare. I mean, it goes so bad. A lot of times we see the black marks going down, but sometimes it's just down to bare metal. And it's just awful. It's on every door. So it is an important part of keeping it up.
Yeah, you don't realize how much wear and tear the metal will actually just scratch itself to pieces if you don't have that in place.
Yeah.
So let's bounce back again to the Everbright. James had a question about this. Can you discuss how successful Everbright is to occupied units? The concern is about overspray, and like, can you walk us through what that actually looks like?
Yeah, so we have we had a contracting division for 25 years doing storage. And that we've recently closed down our own contracting division, but we now, since 2020, I've been training contractors throughout the country to do Everbright application. We have 28 contractors now who can do the work across the country. And we trained them very specifically. Like I said, the first step is cleaning the doors. And you have to be careful. You don't want to pressure wash your doors. You will get water in the unit. And so we train our contractors to clean the doors from, you stand at the outside. If you use a low pressure hose, you spray towards the middle of the door and you spray from the top down. So the water runs, sorry, my blur background's going weird, but the water goes down and runs down the door so that you're not spraying up into the unit. You're not spraying into the side of the unit. And so it's really important to do that. And then when you are spraying the Everbright, it dries clear and it dry falls in 10 feet. So it won't get all over the place. It will not get into the units. And again, we do that spraying where we're not spraying up into the thing. You know, you start at that top rib really that everybody sees. And you're right. The very top part that nobody sees is not going to get clean and it's not going to get Everbrighted, but it also doesn't get sun. And so it's not going to be very faded and oxidized. So we start at that top rib and spray all the way down, avoiding spraying into the unit. So it does not go into the unit. We always do it in occupied units. We are never expected. I tell most people, you don't even really need to let your your tenants know that you're doing something, because we don't interrupt the day-to-day business. When they're cleaning doors, somebody drives up and needs to get in the unit, they get out of the way. They go move on to different units. And when they're spraying the doors, it takes about 20 minutes to dry. So we just, if somebody drives up, we say you could, 20 minutes, if we just sprayed it and somebody drives up, 20 minutes, you can get into your unit. So there really is such a little, so small interruption that it's negligible. We did have, I had somebody tell me at the booth one time, he got yelled at by a customer who said, "You replaced my door, you took my door off and you didn't tell me and you did this." And he's like, whoa, bam. Nope, we did not replace your door. We had them everbrighted. We did not open your unit. So yeah,
there you
definitely
go.
don't have to worry about it.
That's awesome.
I mean, since we're still on doors,
Why I'm here, right, guys?
right?
Yeah.
There are a couple other questions related to doors that since we're we're on this topic. So like Stephanie King asked, like, how do y'all maintain inside doors? Like, how do you wash and how do you paint and Everbright coat? Like, what do you do about in interior doors?
Please don't use Pledge. That's all I can say.
First of all, it stinks. So don't do that anyway.
And it's so not good for, they're not made for paint. They're
No.
not made for painted surfaces.
Mm-mm.
We do have an interior waterless wash and wax product. However, we are not renewing that product. So if you can find any kind of like a Caranuba wax, that's really made for paint. We do still have a few cases if anybody wants to buy it, but we're not renewing it once it's gone. But you don't want to use water interior at all. Exterior doors sometimes have a lip to prevent water from getting in the bottom, but the exterior driveways are built at a V where the water drains to the middle in most situations. Inside, they are not made like that. The water will literally go right into the unit. So don't use water interior.
Well, there you go.
Use a wax product. We do have these things amazing. I call them magic pads. They're called prep pads. They're 000 synthetic steel wool. It's what we use to get all the chalk and oxidation off the doors before we do it. But they take off, the black marks in the hallways from the carts that people run in. It takes those off without scratching the paint. They're amazing. And any kind of like a wax product that is made for painted metal. You can get it like a car automotive shop.
There you go. Yeah, I just Googled Caranuba wax because I never heard of that term in my life, and and it's related a lot to car paint. So there you have it. And then Jenny, I mean, again, the people want to know about doors. Jenny has any suggestions on wooden doors? I know we've talked a lot about metal, a lot about paint. What about wood? Any advice on maintaining wooden doors?
I would say wash them. Wash them down, keep them clean, and then paint them.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Yep. Awesome.
If you've got a relatively new facility and you just want to keep the dust down on interior, I would recommend like a Swiffer mop. That just kind of attracts the dust, and just a good dusting of those once a month is going to cut down 90% of your problems. It's going to get the pollen that drifts in and the dust from moving in and out, and that'll just keep it maintained from day one if you stay on that.
I didn't think about a Swiffer mop. That's there you go.
It just
a Swiffer, or you can even get we sell them through us, but you don't have to get them through us, but microfiber cloths. So you take them, same thing. You just wipe them down even dry. Those you can wash like 300 times and they still are brand new.
There you go.
So
amazing.
The mop just works well for the short people that can't reach the top of the door.
I don't have that problem. I'm so sorry.
I do have that problem.
Oh my gosh. So let's move outside of the facility. So we talked about doors, a little bit about roofs. Let's talk about your signage, your presentation, right? The cleanliness of the facility. So what are the different signage options are there, and what are the ones that are popular these days for newer facilities?
Nigel, you want to start with that one?
Not particularly, but I'll jump in. Yeah, the obviously your branding is critical, right, to success and visibility. So we see a lot of new LED type signage going in on facilities that we're building. That seems to be the mode of communication. So in the old days with the traditional signs, just that was just your single marker. But you see a lot, like everywhere you see with LED signs, you see messages, you see notifications, you see the weather, you see all those types of things. So but on the facility itself, we just see standard signage that you're seeing on most buildings, but consistency and branding, if you're a multi-facility operator, is key, obviously.
Yeah, I would say, really, I read something and I couldn't agree more. People don't choose storage by brand. They choose it by convenience. And so as long as your signs are very clear that you have storage there, and if it looks clean outside and your sign is, you want to have your contact information so they can get a hold of you, but they're not going to public storage because it's public storage and they know the name. They're going to one that's closest and clean, and the rate, if they're comparing rates, they're going to compare rates. So as long as it's very clear that it's storage, I think that's really important, because nobody's going to say, oh, I want, interlock self-storage, because that's not how people think of it unless they know the business already. They're going to go with, oh, that one on the way to work, that one looks really good. It looks clean. It looks presentable. Like, it looks safe. That's how people choose storage.
Yeah, I think the safe thing is really something to key in on. The cleanliness, and then the presentation of how safe is that facility is critical. I think the main users of storage are female, I think, predominantly. I know for me personally, my wife goes to the storage unit to get the stuff. I say, where is it? She says at the storage, she'll go grab it, or whatever the case may be if I'm working. So, the cleanliness and the presentation of your facility needs to show that that it's an environment that someone wants to move into, and predominantly, and obviously I'm not one, but a female needs it, is looking more for the security side of it than and the brightness side of it, and knowing that they can be safe inside that facility, because there's no one else in there either typically. And so when you walk into that big vast space, you want to know that you're protected.
Yep. Which just speaks to curb appeal in general. Making sure that the outsides look clean. It doesn't look run down. The trash is picked up. I tell people, trash may blow in from the convenience store next door, but that's still your responsibility to pick up. You can't say it's not my trash. It's your facility. And if there's trash, if there's weeds, if there's vagrants around, people are not going to feel safe, especially with the vagrants. Like you said, women are not going to feel safe going into that if there's a tent out front or whatnot, so it's really, you have to be mindful about how safe and clean it looks going by.
Yeah, no, I say that, I mean, man or woman, like a long, dark, dingy hallway that looks gross and nasty, like, it gives me the heebie-jeebies, and I would prefer not to, right? Like, no offense to some of our clients that we've stepped foot on their facilities. It's like, ooh, I'm glad y'all have rentals, because if you didn't, you may not rent any units, and I think curb appeal makes a huge difference. It's just giving me that sense of security, like, okay, this is safe. That while I'm here, nothing bad is going to happen to my being. And I think that's a huge deal. But related to that, go ahead, Nigel, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think curb appeal is an easy get as well.
Yeah.
You don't need to make a huge, massive capital investment in order to create curb appeal. You just need to do it and maintain it, and then you can work from there.
Clean and bright. That's really what you're aiming for. Clean and bright. As long as you're well lit and it's clean, it doesn't have to have fancy landscaping. It doesn't have it. It just doesn't. The cleanliness will breed cleanliness, and the bright light will also help keep all of the no good doers away. So yeah, I do want to speak a little bit more about signs. Raquel actually mentioned something about having a city that restricts marketing signs by the sidewalk. There are a variety of different signs that belong on your property. And I think there's some confusion about what information is best on each of those signs. And I've seen some that want to make their big roadside sign have all of their information, their web address and their phone number and what size units they have. And, that stuff's not necessary. Your main outdoor sign that's by your road, that needs to have who you are. That is just who you are. And then when you get closer into your facility on your gate or at your keypad, that's when you start getting opportunities to put other signage that has, how do I actually contact this person? What are the phone numbers and the email addresses? And that's where your QR codes go. But if you're driving 35 miles an hour down the road and someone has a phone number in 4-inch letters, you're not reading that. You can't. So put that information on the signs where your tenant's already going to be stopped and they're going to be able to see it. Your main sign is just your logo. So don't lose heart, Raquel. If you can't put all of the main signs out, you've still got plenty of opportunities in your facility or on your gate, hopefully, where you can put plenty of marketing information, and you can make those rather large. And hopefully that would give you answers to some of the questions and issues that you're having there.
And Lewin made a point about QR codes at the facilities, and that's really important. I mean, people know QR codes, thank you, COVID. But your signage, even the signage you have on your office wall when you're closed, like, scan here to contact someone. I say, you also within the facility, you need signage, especially if you're unmanned or nobody's there on a regular basis. You need very clear maps, very clear building numbers, and QR codes that someone says, if there's, the dumpster's overflowing and full, QR code, scan here if this area needs attention. You could have all of those that all go to your maintenance person and sends them the same thing. It doesn't even have to say what area, but if it's at the facility, this area needs to have the 12 of the same sign, for economies of scale. But you need those, especially for non-manned facilities.
No,
But you're
it's
right,
amazing.
outside, they're gonna see your logo, and then they're gonna Google storage near me, and oh, that's the one. That's all you need.
Boom.
Yep.
Yeah. I put a link to USA Storage Centers in the comment section there. Check out if you're nearby any of their facilities, and they have like 40 or 50 facilities, mostly in the Southeast. But if you're close by one of their facilities, they had their director of marketing, Velma, did a big push this year to improve all of their signage at every location. So they've got QR codes, they've got information, they've got size guides, they've got maintenance guides, they've got how do you rent, how do you contact support. They've got all of those signages placed all throughout the facilities in really smart ways. They've got maps. All of these things that you're talking about, Jackie, they've done a really tremendous job in the last 6 months improving their facility, because people want to be able to self-help when they can, right? And it just improves your facility when customers can just kind of know what to do next. So if you're close by one of their facilities, check it out. I think I think they've done a really good job. So I guess when we're talking about curb appeal, we're talking about signage and like the facility itself, right? And all between the four of us, we've probably stepped foot on thousands of facilities, right, in our lifetimes. What are the biggest blind spots that owners and managers typically don't see about their facility that we see immediately? Or not just us, but like real customers be like, oh yeah, that thing over there shouldn't be there. But owners and managers, because they go there every day, they don't see it or they don't think about it. So what are these big blind spots that we should be looking out for?
For me, it's what I was saying before. People don't realize how bad their doors are until they have to do something about it. And then they go, whoa, I think that's a huge blind spot. Especially if people are, have high occupancy. They're like, everything's fine. We're good.
Until one day you're not.
Until one day you're not, exactly.
Oh, I think that's great. Nigel, what about you? What are the things that always kind of grind your gears when you see it at a facility?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's building damage. Like I see dented stuff, obviously being in the metal business, I'm I'm keyed in on that stuff all the time, you know. So when I see, you know, a downspout that's been half ripped off or they didn't put it back on, or someone running into the corner of the building and haven't got around to fixing it and stuff like that. So I think the you know, to the cleanliness and the security and the brightness, and it's about making sure that your facility, you know, represents what you want it to be as well. And so when you let little things go, yeah, they have a tendency to ball up and become bigger things. And, you know, for something that you're looking at that may be like a, you know, several $100 fix, but aesthetically it might make all the difference to someone who walks in and sees a dented panel or a hole in a panel, a hole in a door. They're like, well, I don't want to rent a unit. Is my unit going to have a hole in my door as well? You know, what does that look like for me? So for me, it's about aesthetics and the cleanliness and crispness of what things look like.
Yeah. Max says
I'm
lost nest.
Yeah, that's
So, nothing impacts your security like a wasp nest coming at you.
Oh my goodness.
Max,
Well,
I love
Tommy,
it.
what's one of your pet peeves? Walking on
Honestly, it's
property?
weeds in the gravel, y'all. Kills me. You know,
Yeah.
not every facility is gonna have nice asphalt. Not every facility needs nice asphalt, right? But like, if you have gravel and you've got weeds all up in that gravel, it kills me because it's like that's not. I mean, I know weeds come and go, but it's not that hard to deal with, and it's not that costly compared to some of the other stuff that we're talking about. You know, we're talking about, I don't know,
It's
100
vinegar.
Yeah, we're talking about vinegar, $4 jug of vinegar, right? If you
Oh,
don't
that
want to,
stinks.
that's true. But ultimately, that when I drive up to a facility to hang out with a client or to visit, weeds in the gravel or weeds where they're not supposed to be really gets me, because it's just a sign that, yeah, like Nigel, like you said it, if you're not taking care of this small stuff, what else? Where are the weeds that I don't see, right? And that's kind of like where the lizard brain kicks in. What about you?
Mine is dirty hallways, especially
Mm.
hallways that have just been cleaned with just a push broom, and then all the dirt ends up in the crevices of all the doors. And it's like, you didn't actually sweep at all.
No.
You did not clean these floors.
Yeah.
You just pushed it. You know, you actually are pushing it into other units, and that's not cool. So that's a
No.
pet peeve of mine.
No, that's
So-
real. So we had a whole agenda. We spent 15 minutes of it on doors.
We did.
Hey, that's what the people wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
We have so many questions in the Q&A
We
too.
do.
I'm like,
You know what? I suggest let's knock out the Q&A, and then
Okay.
we have a lightning round, and then let's draw some names so we can give out some gift cards.
Okay.
Does that sound good?
That sounds good.
I'll ask the first one here. So Matt asked way early on in the show, do you have suggestions on an asset management program to use across a portfolio? So like a rental or like a maintenance management program, that sort of thing. Is there any good software out there, or is there any any even low tech solution to help manage all of these things?
I think the solution is either a more high-tech solution. There are software management, maintenance and systems out there. Also, if you have a national presence or a portfolio presence, there are facilities management companies who need doing work outside of self-storage. There are many national brands for facility maintenance, and they keep track of it. They make sure everything's doing. They do preventative maintenance. They do break fix. They do all of it. There's a lot of national companies out there trying to get into self-storage. All of a sudden, everybody realized that there were 55,000 self-storage locations in the country, and that was probably a good market. So one of our contractors, Springwise, they're a national contractor, and that's exactly what they do is facilities management. And there's many others that really want to get into this space and are happy to help you build a program.
Okay, Melissa, what were y'all using?
Monday.com.
Monday.com.
And Josh and I actually still use that today. Just
There you
to, as a general task manager, it is fantastic.
Yeah.
And it's not very expensive because you pay by user.
There you go.
So yeah.
Yep.
I-
So Monday.com is good. A Google
that.
sheet or an Excel sheet if you want to just go low tech, right? Just have an Excel spreadsheet with some columns that are smart. But that's a great question, Matt. So
You can obviously share an Excel spreadsheet if you got a smaller team, and
There you go.
It's easy to
Yeah.
track.
Yep.
Yep, I agree. Okay, so Christine has the next one. When you say clean the unit when a tenant moves out, what exactly do you usually do? Oh my goodness, I have a list for this. I'm
good
gonna
one.
let um so unless you guys want to speak to this question. No, Nigel, you don't want to do it. Okay.
Well, let's hear it.
So you sweep from corner to corner, edge to edge, sweep down your side walls. They get dusty and grimy and disgusting. Sweep those, sweep out all the crevices. Please close the door behind you and sweep the bottom of the door, at least the bottom half of the door. I know some people that will go as far as to run a damp mop over it. I think depending on your area and depending on how dusty and grimy it is, that very well may be necessary. I personally, a good broom has always done the trick. Sometimes you have to actually get a shop vac and clean out those crevices where the pieces of the metal stick up on the floor. You've got, it creates the rims around your walls. So sometimes you need to dig a little bit more and do a little bit of extra work, but I promise you, your tenants pay attention to that and they see how clean you have it when you present the unit to them. They are much more likely to give you back a good product when they're done with it.
What a great way to train your customer. Like,
Yes.
here's the standard. This is kind of what that's
Yep,
amazing.
exactly.
I just got word from our producers, Tyler. We're gonna do a second episode. We're gonna do a pop-up episode for we're gonna save the lightning round questions because I imagine we're gonna get stuck on the first one. So we're gonna save the lightning round questions for a pop-up episode. So I don't know when that'll be, but we'll coordinate and send out details. We can do it while you're in Orlando, Melissa.
Okay.
Brooke asks, so we'll wrap up the Q&A, then we'll give out some gift cards. So Brooke asks, has anyone used or tested out the new lock that was developed through Tracti? Anyone in the audience or any of our speakers know anything about the Tracti locks that came out recently?
Yeah, so it's actually produced by Onity, and Onity is a global lock maker that they use in hotels primarily. I think they have a contract with Hilton as their main user. So they're a new entrant into the market. They are, I believe, still in their pilot program right now. But they are certainly going to be a force inside it. Their software and is really cool. They're not hardwired into the network. They are router based and so wireless based. So I think they will bring a new dynamic to that market, but they are a new entry to storage. I think they're well proven in the hotel industry, but they are a new entrance into the storage market with their lock.
And that's the Passport lock, correct?
Yeah, Passport.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I couldn't remember what they branded.
Yeah, I just found it online, so I was just going to put it in our.
There you go. So Brooke, hopefully that's helpful. I know y'all are working out some launching a new facility in the near future. So hopefully that helps make some decisions.
That's awesome. All right. It makes sense to clean the interior between tenants, but how often would you recommend cleaning the doors and walls, etc., on the exterior to make sure they stay in good shape?
6 months is a pretty good, you want to wash them down every 6 months. All your buildings, all your doors, all your everything. Again, wouldn't recommend a pressure washer to anybody. Maybe on a concrete metal building. Maybe especially if you get like some mold and whatnot, mold and mildew buildup. But every 6 months is a really good cleaning program to keep the chalk and oxidation at bay, to keep all the dirt and dust and grime and whatnot. That's what I recommend.
There we are.
Probably after the spring pollen finishes settling, then go wash it all off.
Yeah.
Someday it'll stop settling.
Yeah, don't wash it in April because tomorrow.
No.
Yeah, that won't do any good.
SE3PC1 asks, can we have this topic again? Yes, the short answer is yes. So you asked for it, we are going to do it. So Brandy Coots asks, how often should we clean the exterior side of climate control doors? Is there any difference between exterior doors and interior climate control doors when it comes to cleaning schedule?
While I think that the interior doors don't get nearly as dirty as the exterior doors, I still say 6 months. If you're rotating your interior, exterior, every 3 months, I think that's a really good plan, because it really does help keep your assets lasting longer when you take care of them. And that's all there is to it.
Amazing. Yeah. And then other people are saying 3 months. I saw 60 days earlier too. So, but I think 6 months is a schedule that most people can stick to, which is reality. So next up.
All right. Is there a retail type supplier for metal supplies? Sometimes it's a pain to go through a wholesaler for a few items.
Yeah, there is. So firstly, you'll be able to find a local metal supplier just in your area. A lot of those guys are buying through a large wholesaler, and they're just a retailer for those guys. There's companies like Metal Direct and that sort of stuff out in Central States that have a nationwide presence, that buy from the parent company or move it through the parent company, from the parent company to the local distributor. So if you just search up just local, metal panel supplier or roof supplier for metal, then you'll find someone locally, and they can also get you a custom trim piece if you just needed a corner in a particular color or something like that. So instead of going through the wholesaler, those guys are pretty predominant in local areas.
Well, there you have it. Local metal supply people. Max Volaton. How difficult is it to replace a dented panel? Lousy U-Haul drivers. Probably the average U-Haul driver is lousy. So that's one of those double words. But yeah, so any advice on replacing dented panels, Nigel?
Yeah, so on a wall panel, not that difficult. Depending on the type of panel. If it's a older facility where the panel's been screwed in, it's basically just a matter of removing the fasteners and putting a new panel on to match. If you don't see the fasteners, it becomes a little more complex, because they're typically interlocking from top to bottom, from bottom to top. So that becomes a little more difficult to do. On a door panel, I don't believe you can replace a single panel. You can replace a whole skirt, which is the entire door skirt, but you cannot replace a single panel. But if you've got fasteners, if you've got screws in your walls that are holding the panel on, very easy to replace. Just remove the fasteners, take the panel down, put the new panel on, place the skirt back in.
There we go. Melissa, maybe last question.
Let's see. Let me look and see which one. Oh my gosh, they're still adding them.
I know. Save your questions for pop-up episodes.
I know, this is so difficult. Okay, I'm just going to go with the next one in line. What do you recommend for cleaning mold on the roofs from humid climates?
So you can use just a little bit of a mixture of Dawn and a little bit of bleach, and then a soft wash. Don't use a power washer, because you have a tendency to force the water in between the metal panels. But you can just use a quarter part bleach, a quarter part Dawn, and then just a soft wash on top of that. And the Dawn will actually help keep the mold off there moving forward. It forms a little barrier that will help keep the mold at bay.
Awesome.
I do have to say, we now have Everbright with Microban, the antimicrobial. So if somebody has a problem, in a really humid area and has a problem with mold, like on the north side of their building, where it doesn't get a lot of sun, we do actually have Everbright that we can put the Microban in it, so it will not grow mold, mildew, and algae going forward.
Nice.
Yeah. I don't know what the record is for most questions asked in an episode, but there's got to be a top 3.
I know. Yeah. So
this was the 50.
That's what everybody's like. It's my turn to get my question in. I'm on the 50th show. Okay, so I think we do need to hit these last 2 if we've got just a minute.
I have time. Yep.
Okay, so is there a good cleaning suggestion for units with really dusty walls and doors, because he's using water and it's making more of a mess? So yeah, I think that really kind of goes back to addressing it before it becomes a super bad problem. I actually suggest dusting down those interior doors monthly, just to run that quick if you run, just like, you don't wait 6 months to dust inside of your house, because it's going to get so grimy and disgusting. You're not going to want to touch it. So if you will just quickly run that Swiffer mop through your doors every single month inside your hallways, you're going to eliminate most of your problem. Outside, don't wait until the entire, spring season goes through and you've had rain and pollen and rain and pollen and rain and pollen for 6 weeks straight before you bother touching it, because it is just going to solidify on the door and it's going to be so much harder to get off. Regular cleaning really does help with that. Take a look at it monthly. When you're doing your monthly walkthrough of your property, take a note of which doors are starting to get some buildup and go ahead and tackle it. Don't wait for that 6-month mark every time.
There you go. Shout out, Melissa. Sounds like you've operated some
Lives the life.
facilities.
Maybe
Maybe.
somewhere in a past life. Yeah.
Maybe. All right, y'all. Well, thank
Also, real quick on the maintenance,
Nigel.
I mean, just jumping in, like if you've got HVAC units and all that sort of stuff as well, that the importance of maintaining that stuff for the upkeep,
Yes.
and then that if you've got climate control facilities, obviously maintaining the filters and all that sort of stuff also helps with the dust collection and bits and pieces like that. So you need to look at it from the 30,000-foot view down on how things affect each other and keep a good solid maintenance program in place.
For episode number 2, I actually have a schedule that we can share with.
Nice.
Hey.
Yes, that's a great idea.
I love
I'm
that.
just solidifying my spot in episode number 2.
Okay, there you go. So the audience has heard it.
She gets her invite. I love it, Jackie.
Awesome.
That's so pro. Well, y'all, Nigel, Jackie, thanks for helping us celebrate episode 50 in the best way possible, so we can have episode 51 as a surprise pop-up. But let's give out some money.
Let's do it.
So here are the rules. You have to be here. So if you are no longer here and we call your name, we're gonna call another name. And then if you are here and your name gets called, just put it, comment in the comment section, and someone on the Storage Pug team will grab your info, and we'll send the Amazon gift card electronically to the email of your choice. And that's how that will work. And I believe there are 3 potential winners. So let's spin the wheel. Ready? Winner number 1 goes to...
I love all the shades of purple. I think that's great.
And we got Mike Sullivan. Come on down, Mike. We need what's his name? Bob
Parker.
Yes. Yes. Is Mike Sullivan in the house? Come on down, Mike Sullivan. Mike raised his hand. He's in the house. All right, Mike. Love it, man. So if you will send we'll reach out to you and you can tell us which email you want us to send the gift card to. All right, so Mike, we're removing you from the wheel of surprises. So
Mike, I see your email. I'll email you shortly.
All right, let's go number 2.
The suspense.
I know.
I know, right?
It's gonna be.
Oh, Jeff, no! This was Jeff's first episode, and he almost won money. Oh, Jenny Rodriguez, are you in the house still? I know you've been heavy in the comment section. But aloha, Hawaii, there she is,
Yay!
Jenny. Come on down. Congratulations. Mahalo, aloha. Let's go. All right, and number 3, last but not least. Oh, man, I thought you were gonna win. Forrest. Forrest, that was so mean.
It was.
Forrest, how are you in the house? Come on, make us raise your hand or make a comment. There he is, Forrest. Congratulations to our 3 winners, Mike, Jenny, and Forrest. Congratulations. We will be in touch via email, and just send us which email you want us to send the gift card to. But thank you, y'all, everyone for helping us celebrate episode number 50. I'm excited to bring Jackie back at least, and we'll probably bring Nigel back too for a surprise pop-up episode to continue talking about our storage facilities. It turns out we all love talking about storage. But Jackie and Nigel, what are the best ways for our audience to reach out to you in case they have more questions about what y'all do or how you can help their facilities? Jackie, what's your best contact info?
Jackie at everbrightcoatings.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm always there. And also our website, renew-storage.com is great. And that'll get to me as well.
Love it. Nigel, same question to you, sir. How do people find you?
Yeah, Nigel at storagestructuresinc.com, storagestructures.com for our website. And I'm also on LinkedIn and reach out any way you need to, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, y'all, seriously, thank you so much for coming out. Melissa, I can't believe we've done 50 things, man.
I know. Thank y'all for all your comments in the chat. You guys are just full of congratulations, and we really appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely unreal, y'all. And I love seeing all your names and all the first timers. Jeff, I'm glad you picked a good one for your first one. But as we wrap up here, check out the Facebook group, check out all the past sessions, storagepug.com/resources, which is actually where this episode will be hosted, in addition to the Gabfocus podcast, and you can listen to that wherever you get your podcasts. And the next episode that's scheduled is maximizing your team. So we're going to talk about how to hire new people, bring on the best people, and train your team to be the best team to take care of your business, your investment, and your customers. But it's possible that we have a pop-up episode or two before then. So be on the lookout. And seriously, thank you so much for everyone coming, y'all. And Melissa, 50 episodes. Incredible.
I know.
Yeah.
Amazing stuff.
Congratulations, you guys.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you, y'all. We've had the best front row seats to some of the best people in the industry. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Much love, everyone. Bye, y'all.